Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so some NBA stuff to talk about because, of course, KD trade took place. I made a video about that. That should be uploading right now. And we also have Game 7 of the NBA Finals coming up tonight, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, you got the draft coming up on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and Thursday, second round, same time. So it's a lot going on in the NBA right now, man. So I didn't talk too much about the NBA Finals since, what, Game 3 or something like that? I told you I'd talk about it if I felt like it. And even though it's been some stuff to talk about, I didn't feel like it. It was too much other things to talk about that were a little more pressing from my liking in regards to this channel. But, you know, it's been a great series. Clearly, we had a Game 7, so it didn't suck. And you just got to give credit to both teams for fighting through serious adversity. I think the Thunder are growing up rather right before our very eyes, I guess is what I can say. Whether they win this series or lose this series, I think they're probably the favorites to win the championship next year. Unless they do something crazy with their roster, I think they are probably the favorites to win it. And, you know, I just can't say enough about the Indiana Pacers' resilience. Things that would knock 99% of the teams out mentally just could, you know, they survive. I thought they needed to win Game 4. They had a 15-point lead going into the fourth quarter of Game 4 and did not win the game, blew it. I thought they were mentally, most teams in that situation are mentally shot. Going up against a team that you would expect is better than you, younger than you. You got to go back into their building. I thought they were shot. And they won Game 5. Emphatic. Oh, no, they lost Game 5, right? And then found themselves with their back against the wall and won 2 straight. Is that how that went? Lost Game 4. Lost game, I don't remember. But the point is, this team, when you think they're about to be gone, here they come. And with their back against the wall in Game 6, I just thought they played some of the best basketball imaginable. Had a 30-point lead going into the fourth quarter, sealed the deal, and just were awesome, man. You figured when Halliburton went down with the injury to his leg or whatever it was, you figured they were done. That would be something that would knock them out. No way they're going to be able to come back from that. The series is over going into Game 6. Not only did he play, but he played amazing, and so did the rest of his team. I'm done doubting the Indiana Pacers. I'm done doubting them. I'm done doubting them. With that being said, I still think it's a tall task for them to win tonight on the road in Game 7. I do think that's a tall task, but they've been knocking off tall tasks all playoffs long. They're knocking off tall tasks since January. And they really do have the mental edge on this Oklahoma City team, who is also very resilient. But I am of the firm belief that they are the better team, Oklahoma is. And they are benefiting greatly, surviving the resilience of the Indiana Pacers because of it. But I don't know that they're as resilient as Indy. I don't think too many teams are, historically, as resilient as this Indy team. So I think it would really, I'm going for the Pacers, right? So I think I got to caveat, I got to put a preference on my statement by saying that, preference? That's not the right word. Asterisk, I guess, next to my statement, I don't know. But I was going to say it would suck if the Pacers don't win this series, in my opinion, because they have shown so much determination. They are the underdog. They have survived what most underdogs and favorites in a lot of cases would not survive. And I think that if they can win this game, they will go down, in my humble opinion, as one of the greatest championship teams of my lifetime. If they can win this game. One of the greatest championship teams of my lifetime. I'm 40 years old. We're talking about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, San Antonio Spurs, you know, the Lakers of the 80s, Detroit, both eras, Golden State, Cleveland. I'm not saying they're the best champion, but I'm saying you got to put them in there with the greatest of the time I've been alive. Straight up. You got to mention them with the great teams if they can win this game tonight. And if they don't win this game, I would say that they're one of the most memorable losers of the finals that you will ever see if they don't win this game. Now, if they get blown out by 40 tonight, it would really kind of take a lot of that luster off of it. But let's say they play a close game tonight and lose in overtime or something like that, at the buzzer or something like that, I will remember the Indiana Pacers as one of the most resilient teams I've ever seen in any sport, not just basketball. They survive things that most teams could not, whether you're talented or not. They just have a different mental about themselves, and I have a lot of reverence for them historically. Just like a lot of people were talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder historically before this series, is the way I'm talking about the Pacers now that we're at Game 7. I just think they're one of the greatest teams ever. Not to say that they're the most talented team ever. That's not what measures the greatness I'm talking about. It's that they've been able to stay resilient and find a way to put themselves in a Game 7 situation of the NBA Finals. First Game 7 we've had in 9 years. And they were a team that you could argue was expected to be bounced in the first round halfway through the season. Like, that's a greatness about itself. When we talk about greatness, we often equal that to being the most talented, to being the best team. The word greatness is also often, if not mostly, aligned with superior capability, talent. But that's not what this is. This is having less than most and still managing to reach the excellence of those who have the most. And that's why I enter them as one of the greatest teams that have ever gotten this far, in my opinion. One of the greatest teams to ever get this far. And so we got to change our idea about what greatness means. Because greatness, in this case, doesn't mean you were the best team. It just means that you were able to overcome more than anybody else. You were able to accomplish what it is that nobody else is able to, basically. And that also equals. I don't think you take this Pacer team and put them up against the greatest teams of all time and expect for them to win because of how we define greatness. But this, to me, is greatness too. This, to me, measures greatness as well. When you have less, but you accomplish more. And you do it in the level of excellence that they've been able to accomplish this. So that's why I was always rooting for the Pacers anyway, but at this point, I'm rooting for them in a different way because I really want to see them cap this off and win this NBA championship for the sake of their historical placement on the all-time list of teams. You know, the first team that comes to mind for me when I think about this type of thing is the Detroit Pistons of 2004, who beat my Los Angeles Lakers. And I look back on that championship for them, it was very painful for me. But when you zoom out, the further away we get from that, the more I have respect for what they accomplished. Beating Shaq and Kobe, Gary Payton in his, past his prime, but he was still productive. Of course, we didn't have Karl Malone, so I always harping back on that. But I don't think anybody remembers that outside of Laker Nation. They were able to accomplish something that most couldn't because they only overcame a team that had won a three-peat while they were still intact. And they did it with a bunch of guys that you would consider not great names at the time. Those guys made a name off themselves for doing that. The biggest name on that team was probably Rasheed Wallace, who had just gotten there. So that's who I measure this type of thing against. And to me, this is probably a greater situation than that, in my opinion. They probably, in my book, gonna be greater than the Detroit Pistons if they win this. So that's just my point of view. I haven't heard anybody else echo that statement. Of course, they have to seal the deal in order for that to really be something that people talk about. But them getting to a Game 7 in the NBA Finals against a team that had 63 wins, and them being a team that was probably considered maybe 5th or 6th best in the Eastern Conference, it's one of the great things I've ever seen in my life of watching basketball. And so for that to be the case, and then to be a small market team in an era where You would argue that the NBA would much rather have high market teams in place in an era where you're experimenting with the idea of having small markets. For them to come out and play this well, I think they need to be given a whole lot of credit, because there's a lot of pressure on them to do so, to assure that the NBA doesn't feel it necessary to phase teams like this out. And they've delivered in the highest way. So I think, when you really look back on this series, you see the jump shot that Tyrese hit in game 1. You see game 6 of J-Dub just completely going monstrously crazy in game 6. You see, obviously, Pascal Siakam in the pre-game huddle with his eyes rolled in the back of his head. I don't know what that was, but he certainly came out and played monstrous afterward. It's just a lot of different things that stand out. And I'm in awe of what both of these teams ultimately displayed in this series. Because when you're going up against a Terminator team like the Indiana Pacers, to still be alive as the Oklahoma City Thunder is also something to be proud of. Although they did drop the last 2 games, this is one of the most resilient teams we've ever seen. So for you to still be alive against them in a game 7 also speaks to just how powerful your resilience and how talented your team is, and how well Sam Presti put this thing together. And so I think both of these teams deserve a great deal of high honors for what they're accomplishing. I don't want to compare it to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson when they first got started, and how it's been said that the league was in trouble when those guys first got started. They came by and saved the league. I don't think it's that, but it is something in that same ballpark as it pertains to both of these being small markets, the NBA being complaining about ratings, Luka the Don being traded to the Lakers in nefarious ways to try to booster these teams, and the Laker team that is obviously a cash cow for this league. And then you got these 2 teams in the middle of America putting on this spectacular all-time great NBA Finals performance that delivers a first game 7 in almost a decade. I can't say enough about how special and how rewarding it has been to watch this series. And I will definitely be tuning in tonight. I got some things going on at 5 o'clock while this game is tipping off, but I will have my eyes on this basketball game as soon as that process is over, what I got going on. And so I just feel that they deserve a great deal of flowers, both teams, regardless who wins the championship, regardless how great game 7 is or how bad game 7 may be. This has been one of the all-time great series, and I'll remember it as such, man. I didn't get to see this too much in my lifetime. I think of a series, ironically enough, the Seattle Sonics winning their championship in '79. I think that was one of those improbable situations where a team out of nowhere wins it. You don't expect that. Obviously, that was before my time, so I don't know much about the history. But when I look at Seattle, they're smashed in between a bunch of Lakers, a bunch of Celtics, you know what I mean? You just don't expect it. It's good to have that, a little more than what we've been able to in my lifetime. 40 years of NBA watching, or whatever it's been for me, 30 years. You always got the same teams over and over again. Now, for me, it's been rewarding because my team has been the most winning team in that process. So far be it for me to complain about that. But it is wonderful to see teams that don't win very much, or ever for that matter, which is another thing that's considered about these 2 teams, that neither have won, with the exception of Seattle, which were the Thunder before this, the change of the guard there. But it's just a great opportunity to truly see something that you never see, and then for it to perform the way that it does in this situation. I really do rank this up there with the top NBA Finals of my lifetime. So with that being said, we'll see who wins. Go Pacers. And that's pretty much what I gotta say. My name's BDL44. I thank you all for watching.